Hi, my name's Cathy Warren. I'm part of the Wilfred Owen Commemoration team who've been doing the organising for a very special event that's taking place here in Birkenhead this week. Wilfred Owen grew up in Birkenhead, spent most of his formative years here, and this weekend it's 100 years since his death in World War I. So it's very important for us here in the town to remember him. It may seem a surprise that an ordinary kid from Birkenhead should end up being one of the UK's most iconic war poets. And we're remembering him in a whole host of ways. We've had lots of community events in the run-up to this week, including 1,000 young people in Wirral schools making large poppies, which are going to be planted around the memorial in Hamilton Square. We've also had some fantastic community workshops with artist Robyn Woolston, who's created a massive installation here in the Williamson Art Gallery called Men March to Sleep.
My commission for the Wilfred Owen Festival is an installation titled Men March to Sleep, and the name of the installation comes from Wilfred Owen's poem Dulce et decorum est, and it's an incredible line because it's very evocative. We're talking about men that would have been in the middle of battle and they're so tired but they're still marching forward. I've been working with the archive at the library in Birkenhead and also Wirral Archive Service, and I've had the immense joy to work with the archive at the Williamson, which is incredible, and to work with former soldiers and serving soldiers and members of the Spider Project to collate, respond to the World War I narrative related to Birkenhead. At one end of the gallery, we are facing a large wall full of advertising hoardings of the time. So you get a real sense of the opulence, but also it's recruitment posters and it's women standing outside Lady Lever and they're saying goodbye to their soldiers. So from there we go into a trench, which is a full height. And as we exit the trench, you hit one of Wilfred Owen's poems called Mental Cases, and you immediately see this solitary tree that is a print from the collection at the Williamson. And then we move out into the Birkenhead news, reports of the time, and information about Camel Lead and the shipbuilding, and you really get the sense of this other side of the story. And somewhat poignantly, the exhibition ends at the canal where Wilfred Owen died, and I can only say today that I wish he was able to understand the impact his words and his legacy had left for the people that now have freedoms.
We also have another installation here by artist Dodd, which is called the Fallen Leaves Project, in which every leaf is dedicated to a fallen soldier, and the oak leaves they're painted on are in memory of the Cheshire Regiment. So we've had some extraordinary stories told to us. We've worked with veterans, we've worked with Wirral's Spider Project, and we've met lots and lots of local people who've come to talk to us, particularly in local libraries. It really did send shivers down our spine as if we were watching centuries of history roll out before us in these corners of little libraries here in the Wirral. So one of the really important things for us about the Wilfred Owen Commemoration is not that it's just about this week, but it's about the future. We've got the Wirral military veterans who now want to make sure that arts and creativity are part of their long-term plan. And of course we've got the wonderful Wilfred Owen Choir that after only 6 weeks stunned us all with their performance in the Williamson Art Gallery at the launch of all these events. So perhaps we've had young people who've listened to Michael Morpurgo and thought, I'm a boy in Birkenhead, and like Wilfred Owen and Michael Morpurgo, I can be a writer too.
So I'm here today to do a talk, but not just about Wilfred Owen, about writing, and about writing in particular about war. I'm not a great writer like Wilfred Owen, I'm a story maker. But the origins are the same. He became a great poet because of what he was living through in the First World War. I became a story maker that people seem to enjoy more when I started writing about what I really cared about. And I discovered quite late, I think I was in my 30s really, that what mattered to me most was not war, but peace. Born in 1943, I grew up just after the Second World War. So all around me, where I grew up in London, and would have been the same in Birkenhead or Liverpool or anywhere where there had been bombing, I saw destroyed houses. I played in bomb sites. So everywhere around me growing up was this feeling that there had been this war. But when I was little, I didn't really know what the war was, just know it had happened and that we'd won. And I knew that old people died, but I didn't really realise that you died when you were young. Well, you did if there was a war around it. So war had this extraordinary effect on everything around me. And I realised as I was becoming a writer that this question of war, whether you fight war or not, or whether you don't fight in a war if it comes along, was very important. And that the striving for peace seemed to me to be the most important thing. So in all my stories about war, whatever they are, there's always a sense of, or hope of, reconciliation. That people will, at the end of it all, come together.
There are two things that struck me, Patricia, and I wonder what really marked your card. One was the theology of Michael. It was there about the nature of mankind, about innocence, but above all, this great thing about redemption.
Yes, indeed. Well, he is so popular and obviously well worth listening to. It was a remarkable morning, and your questions, the number that we managed to hear because he was so articulate and took off, were very searching.
Wilfred would have done his poems in the trenches sometimes, and I just wondered at that point, how many poems did he actually read to those lads?
I think he was a very private person, and his poems weren't published during his lifetime.
No. Well, I love the question at the end, nearly at the end, where the young man said about how do you write? Because that was one on my huge long list of things I wanted to.
Yes.
It always fascinates me how people do their job, and he was explaining how he writes.
It was wonderful when he gestured that it comes from here and goes down the arm into the pencil. I understood that totally.
Well, one, we learn how he does it.
Yes.
Always reading it back
Out loud.
So you
It was
could get the whole business.
Absolutely fascinating.
Which-
And keep going.
Yes, because if you don't finish, you'll never finish the next thing.
Wilfred Owen talked about the pity of war and the futility of war. So I'm glad I've written about it in Warhorse and Private Peaceful, and maybe you'll write yourself, not about that, but about a subject you care for. So you sit down one day and you tell your story down onto the page, whether it's in poetry or verse or in plays. So it's there for other people to read, or not for other people to read, just for you, just to get it down. Get it out of yourselves, your troubles, your concerns, your hopes and your desires, and your disappointments and your sadnesses.
These exhibitions in the art gallery will be continuing right through till Christmas. So there are all sorts of things that we hope will reach out from this event that are far beyond perhaps anything any of us had imagined when we started out.